David from North
Miami.
Miami Beach.
Okay, excellent. Um, David, welcome.
Greetings, time changer.
Yes, how are you?
Good to hear your voice,
Thank
and
you.
you sound nothing like Mac Headroom. If
Oh,
you glad
thank
to
you.
know.
Yes, I appreciate that. Although it was a very cool thing when Johnny and I were in school. I mean, it was amazing level of technology. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, we appreciate it.
The critic joke that yes, the critics joke yes, it's a two-dimensional character, which is still one more than you find in most TV shows.
That's right.
Yeah. So right. Well, I've been wishing that. That Dr. Fauci will take the example of John Hurt from the movie Day of the Doctor and start wearing a bandolier of sonic screwdrivers, syringes, whatever. Just
Right.
to remind Republicans that he's tougher than they ever will be.
Right.
I think I'm going to try to pitch Jeff Bezos a TV show since he thinks he's figured out the secret recipe.
Right.
Have a show called Liberal Media, which will instantly give us hate watching down here in South Florida, with, say, Rena Sofer as Stephanie Miller, Michael Emerson as Tom Hartman, maybe
Right.
Elaine Boozer as the afternoon host.
Right.
Just as to summarize what we saw in 2020, and if that takes off, then bounce around the different election years, change their hair, clothing, whatever, to help summarize. Hi, this is what the liberal media was doing while everyone else was goofing off and
hmm
talking around with dumb wedge issues. So
Well,
I'm not an expert like you, but I've had some success with writing. And unfortunately, Jeff Bezos would probably go for it if he wasn't busy prepping for launch.
sure. Well, he's for those of you who don't know, he's taking an 11-minute flight into space, which is fascinating, very futuristic sounding, and incredibly dangerous. I mean, it's top of the mountain stuff, I suppose. But I guess he heard the news that the Japanese mice eggs came back to Earth, and they gave birth to they used these eggs that were stored in freezing on the International Space Station to make new mice, and the mice are not. They've been exposed to all this cosmic radiation, and yet they are completely healthy and normal. They have no genetic mutations. Nothing's wrong with them. So the idea that was one of our big concerns, time and space exposed to that radiation, would it affect your ability to have, would it cause birth defects and that kind of stuff? Apparently this is the first step. So I guess this is maybe just sex in space is the next frontier. But Bezos himself has decided to do this. I'm for it. If you've made that kind of money and you want to risk yourself for humanity, knock yourself out. I mean, we're doing it with school teachers, and we've lost a couple. I think that's up to you. Knock yourself out. And again, I don't have the chip on my shoulder about Bezos that a lot of people have, largely because the man started making an online bookstore. And so that makes him okay in my book to some degree. Now, the question is, as it grew, were they capable of dealing with the growth? And did they have the normal kind of push-pull with labor as it went forward over time? And, is there a balancing act between the two? And it's warehouse work, which is very hard, and yada, yada. Like, that's all stuff you have to work on. But the impetus of it, of a optional service that somebody made up out of whole cloth, that nobody needs, that's as much attention as it gets, is second to Walmart.com, which is almost entirely responsible for 50% of our trade deficit with China. Almost all of that, like $250 billion or whatever, or 500 billion. Yeah. So we like 250 of it goes through Walmart. It's an extraordinary number. I mean, we're selling, what was it, $48 billion worth of F-150s every year. It's crazy. Like the level of like when you really look at the numbers of what's being sold worldwide, which is, by the way, why the expansion of the American economy and why people can look forward to it over the next 10 to 15 years is because as markets open up, meaning that you make a widget in the United States and enough people like it, if you bring 25 cents worth of value to a billion people, you're a multimillionaire. And that's they're Etsy level shops that, if they had the reach and the production capacity, could absolutely make the next 300 billionaires. And that's just going to be how, as the market expands and as global trade expands and as it becomes less, the centralization is going to be around shipping and getting stuff everywhere, not the creation aspect and not the production aspect, especially on the more, organic side of things. So that's something to look forward to economically. There's a great book it's very optimistic about the economic future of the world. And, one of our big fears was overpopulation. It turns out that the populations are actually going down in a lot of countries, that the world population does kind of like have almost a self-governing aspect that's somewhat environmental, somewhat health-based, somewhat cultural. And of course, as education and economic opportunity and social safety nets and those kind of things expand across the world, people don't need to have 19 grandchildren to make sure that 10 of them survive, to make sure that 7 of them can work in the shop, to make sure that 5 of them make enough money to support you in your dotage, right? So one of the more all the more reason to expand education for people across the world as is in a way that like the depopulation conspiracy theories all over the world could only hope to achieve the kind of things that just education and baseline material resources will do. But it's a fascinating part of, that's another, the futurism discussion that I love to have on my own in my own private conversations is a fascinating thing, because I'm a lot more hopeful about it than a lot of other folks in that regard. And we will see over the next year, like right now with the spikes in violence, some of the aspects of, American culture that seem to be on the brink, especially as the QAnon thing falls apart. And a lot of the people are bifurcating into these multitude of little weird groups, some of them very dangerous, threatening county officials and da-da-da. These are all remnants of the Trump administration and the Trump presidency. And without him as their head, they will fade, because you can't back this pony anymore. The QAnon folks are being confronted daily with this reality. Sidney Powell, literally at a QAnon gathering in Dallas, said there is no great plan. Trump is not playing 5D chess. He's not the magic person fighting the cabal. It just isn't true. It was never true. It was never going to be true. And these folks are face to face with that. I don't know if there has been, since Jim Jones or the remnant Manson family that weren't in California, if there's been a decimation of followers of a group like this maybe, I don't know, in my lifetime, certainly. I'm sure there have been, some Young Moon kind of offshoot groups, or Scientology's The Process, which was another offshoot of theirs, that have fallen apart and their leaders fallen, that Nexium or whatever it was, the weird sex cult with the branding nonsense, like a very small group of people. But there's got to be a psychological shock that happens when you confront that you were in a cult, you bought the whole line, you've got to rebuild your life and your personality from scratch, you were sold a bill of goods and you bought it hook, line, and sinker. It tells you more about yourself than it does about the person leading the thing. And that's where a lot of these folks are. They are in this weird panic mode, and they're looking for solace anywhere they can. They're clinging to the idea that Marxists are invading the schools, and that diversity training is really critical race theory, when it's really just, can we all get along largely, and we can be honest about American history without deriding America and still understanding the value it has for all the immigrants that are coming here, for example. Both are possible if your brain can handle complex ideas, and theirs clearly can't because of the daddy issues that they have, that they found a hero in Trump. But that collapse is happening, and it's happening to the kids, and I want to talk about that after we come back, because where's Ivanka and Jared? I mean, we've seen a little bit of Eric running around. Laura Trump just said she's not running for office, and I mean, Don Jr.'s got the best.
That was a threat.
It wasn't really. That's why it was so easy to stop, and even on their end. We'll be back right after this.